Please don't jump.
Some stories don't just entertain, they change the way you feel, think, and see life. Welcome to ZZ Stories.
Please don't, said a poor single dad to the homeless girl about to jump. This is the story of two broken souls who found each other in the darkness of a storm-soaked night, where one desperate plea changed everything. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Hey, please don't! The words tore through the howling wind and rain as Landon slammed his pickup truck door and ran toward the bridge's edge. His work boots splashed through puddles, his heart hammering against his ribs as he saw the slight figure standing on the wrong side of the safety barrier. Through the blur of Denver's midnight storm, he could make out a young woman, maybe 25, her soaked clothes clinging to her trembling frame. She clutched something small in her hands, something she was protecting, even now, even here, even at the end. "Stay back," she whispered, her voice barely cutting through the chaos of wind and rain. Landon raised his hands, palms open, taking slow, careful steps across the slick pavement. His calloused fingers, still aching from 12 hours of warehouse work, trembled not from the cold, but from the recognition in his chest. He knew this moment. He knew this pain. "My name's Landon," he called out, rain streaming down his face. "What's yours?" The woman turned slightly, and in that moment, the streetlight caught her eyes. They were hollow, devastated, filled with pain so deep it took his breath away. She looked at him with the expression of someone who had already said goodbye to the world. "Autumn Walsh," she said so quietly he almost missed it.
Autumn. He repeated her name like a prayer. "That's beautiful. Listen, I don't know what brought you here tonight, but whatever it is, you don't understand." She cut him off, her laugh bitter and broken. "You can't possibly understand what this feels like." Landon took another step closer, his own demons whispering in his ear. Oh, but he did understand, more than she could possibly know. "Try me," he said simply. "I've got all night, and honestly, I could use the company." Something in his voice, the genuine warmth, the complete absence of judgment, made Autumn hesitate. She looked at this stranger who had stopped his truck in the middle of a storm, who stood there getting drenched for her, and for the first time in months, she felt something flicker in the darkness. If you've ever felt completely alone in your darkest moment, this story will show you that hope can come from the most unexpected places. 3 years ago, Autumn began, her voice barely a whisper against the storm. "I killed my family." The words hung in the air like broken glass. Landon felt his chest tighten, not from shock, but from recognition. The way she said it, with such finality, such crushing guilt, he knew that tone. He'd used it himself. "We were going to Riverside Park for a picnic," she continued, clutching whatever was in her hands tighter to her chest. "It was my 22nd birthday, and my little sister Mia was so excited. She'd been planning it for weeks, made me a card with so much glitter it was still falling off days later." Rain mixed with tears on her cheeks, and Landon found himself leaning in, drawn by the raw honesty in her voice.
"Mom was driving. Mia was in the back seat, singing some ridiculous song from her favorite cartoon. We were all laughing, planning which games we'd play at the park." Her voice cracked. "The other car came out of nowhere. The driver had fallen asleep at the wheel." Landon's throat constricted. As a father himself, he couldn't imagine, didn't want to imagine, what came next. "They said Mom and Mia died instantly. They said I was lucky to survive with just broken ribs and a concussion." The word lucky dripped with such anguish that Landon felt it in his bones. Lucky, while my entire world burned to ash around me. "It wasn't your fault," Landon said softly, but Autumn shook her head violently. "It was my idea, my birthday, my stupid celebration." She opened her hands slightly, and Landon could see what she'd been protecting. A crumpled, waterlogged photograph. "This is all I have left of them." The rain continued to pour, but neither of them seemed to notice anymore. They were lost in this moment, this strange confession between strangers on a bridge. "What's in the picture?" Landon asked gently. Autumn's face softened for just a moment, and he caught a glimpse of who she might have been before the world broke her. "It's from that morning. Before we left for the park, Mia had insisted we take a selfie. She said we had to document every moment of my super special birthday adventure." A ghost of smile crossed her lips. She was missing her 2 front teeth, and she had chocolate on her face from the birthday pancakes she had tried to make me. Landon could picture it. The gap-toothed grin, the messy face, the pure joy of a little girl celebrating her big sister. The image made his chest ache with both tenderness and grief.
"She sounds like she was full of life," he said. "She was everything good in this world," Autumn whispered. "And Mom had just started dating again after Dad left us when I was 12. She was finally happy, finally healing. She deserved so much more time." The wind picked up, causing both of them to sway slightly, but Autumn's grip on the barrier remained steady. Landon realized with growing dread that she wasn't just telling him her story. She was saying goodbye to it. "After the accident, I lost everything else too," she continued, her voice growing stronger with each confession. "I couldn't work. The grief, the nightmares, the guilt, it consumed everything. I lost my apartment, my job. Even my friends got tired of my depression." "How long have you been on the streets?" Landon asked, his voice rough. 6 months now. 6 months of waking up every single day and remembering that they're gone because of me, because I suggested that stupid picnic, because I wanted to celebrate my stupid birthday." The raw pain in her voice hit Landon like a physical blow. He thought of his own daughter, Clara, safe and warm in their small apartment just a few miles away, and he couldn't fathom carrying the weight of guilt that this young woman bore. But he understood guilt. He understood feeling responsible for destroying the lives of people you loved most. Have you ever blamed yourself for something completely beyond your control? Sometimes the cruelest judge we face is the one looking back at us in the mirror. "Can I tell you something, Autumn?" Landon said, taking another small step closer. Autumn's eyes widened, confusion flickering across her tear-stained face. "Right here. Same bridge, same thoughts, same plan." The admission hung between them like a bridge of its own, connecting their pain across the void. "I have a 7-year-old daughter named Clara," Landon continued, his voice steady despite the storm raging around them. "She's the light of my entire world. But 2 years ago, I was convinced she'd be better off without me." Autumn stared at him, and for the first time since he'd arrived, she seemed truly present, truly listening. "My wife, Clara's mother, she left us 3 years ago. Took half our savings and moved across the country with her new boyfriend. Just disappeared from Clara's life like she had never existed." Landon ran a hand through his soaked hair. "Left behind a little girl who spent months asking me why Mommy didn't want to live with us anymore." Autumn's grip on the photograph loosened slightly. "I was working 1 job, then 2, then 3 jobs, just trying to keep us afloat. 12-hour shifts at the warehouse, weekend work, cleaning offices, anything I could find. I was so tired I could barely see straight, and every night I came home to this little girl who needed so much more than I felt capable of giving her." Landon's voice caught slightly. "I felt like such a failure. Like I was destroying her chance at a normal childhood, at having the family she deserved. The guilt was eating me alive." "But that's different," Autumn said, speaking up for the first time in several minutes. "You have someone who needs you. Clara needs her father. And you're wrong about something," Landon replied firmly. "You said no one needs you. But somewhere out there, there are people whose lives you're going to touch, people who need exactly what you have to offer." Autumn shook her head, but there was less conviction in the gesture than before. "What was your little sister's favorite thing about you?" Landon asked suddenly.
The question seemed to catch Autumn off guard. Despite everything, a tiny, genuine smile ghosted across her lips. She said I was the best storyteller in the whole world. I used to make up these elaborate fairy tales for her every night. Knights and dragons and princesses who saved themselves. She'd beg for just one more story, just one more adventure, even when Mom said it was way past bedtime.
And your mom, what did she love about you? Autumn's voice became barely audible. She always said I had the biggest heart she'd ever seen, that I cared too much sometimes, but that it was what made me special. She said I felt everyone's pain like it was my own, and that someday that gift would help heal people. Landon felt something shift in his chest. Those parts of you, the storyteller, the person with the enormous heart, they didn't die in that accident, Autumn. They're still here. They're still part of who you are. But what's the point? Autumn's voice broke again. They're gone. Mia will never hear another story. Mom will never see me use this gift she talked about. Maybe not, Landon agreed quietly. But what if there are other little girls out there who need stories? What if there are other broken hearts that need someone who understands their pain? The wind died down for a moment, creating a pocket of strange calm around them. When I was standing here 2 years ago, ready to jump, you know what stopped me? Landon asked. Autumn shook her head. I heard Clara crying. Not actually. She was at home, asleep. But in my head, I heard what her cry would sound like when she woke up and I wasn't there. I heard her asking our neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, where Daddy went and why he didn't come home. Landon's voice grew stronger, and then I started thinking about all the things she'd miss. Not having anyone to read her bedtime stories, not having anyone to kiss her scraped knees when she fell off her bike, not having anyone to walk her down the aisle at her wedding someday. That's exactly what I mean, Autumn said desperately. You have all those moments waiting for you. I have nothing. You have this moment, and the next one, and the chance to discover what they might hold. Sometimes the future we can't imagine is the one worth living for. But what happened next on that bridge would test everything both of them thought they knew about hope.
Autumn stared at Landon for a long moment, rain continuing to streak down both their faces. The photograph in her hands was disintegrating slowly, but she held onto it like an anchor. I can't stop seeing their faces, she whispered. Every time I close my eyes, I see the moment right before impact. Mia was laughing at something on her tablet. Mom was humming along to the radio. They were so happy, so alive. And then the worst thing that could possibly happen happened. Landon finished gently. But you survived it. That has to mean something. Or it means I'm being punished, forced to live without them while carrying all this guilt. Landon was quiet for a moment, thinking about his own darkest nights, the times when Clara's innocent questions about her mother felt like daggers to his heart. Can I ask you something that might sound strange? Autumn nodded slightly. Do you think Mia would want you to be standing here right now? The question hit Autumn like a physical blow. She doubled over slightly, clutching the barrier tighter. She'd want me to be telling her a bedtime story, she sobbed. She'd want me to be helping her with her homework and braiding her hair for school and she'd want you to be happy, Landon said softly. She'd want you to be living the kind of life that would make her proud to call you her big sister. Autumn looked up at him, tears streaming faster now. How can I ever be happy again? How can I smile or laugh or enjoy anything when they can't? Because, Landon said, taking another careful step closer, love doesn't end when someone dies. It transforms. It becomes something new, something that can heal instead of destroy. The storm seemed to be lessening slightly, though neither of them really noticed. When Clara asks me about her mother now, and she still does sometimes, I don't just tell her that Mommy left.
I tell her that some people come into our lives to teach us how to love, and then they leave, so we can share that love with others who need it.
That's beautiful, Autumn whispered. But I don't know how to transform this pain into anything good. One breath at a time, Landon said simply. One day at a time. One small act of kindness at a time. He slowly extended his hand toward her, palm up, an offering rather than a demand. My truck's warm, and I've got a thermos of coffee that's probably terrible, but it's hot. Come with me, Autumn. Let's get you dry and figure out the next step together. Autumn stared at his outstretched hand for what felt like an eternity. The photograph of her family fluttered in the wind, and she pressed it closer to her heart. "What if I can't do it?" she asked, her voice small and frightened. "What if I try to heal, and I just end up disappointing everyone again?" "What if you can?" Landon countered gently. "What if your sister's favorite storyteller still has stories to tell? What if your mother's daughter with the biggest heart still has love to give?" Autumn looked at the photograph one more time, and something shifted in her expression. For just a moment, Landon could see the woman she had been before tragedy rewrote her story, creative, caring, full of life. "They used to call me their sunshine. Even on the worst days, they said I could make them laugh." "That sunshine is still there," Landon assured her. "It's just been hidden by clouds. But sunshine always finds a way through eventually. If you ever wondered whether you can come back from your darkest moment, what happened next will give you hope. Sometimes all it takes is one person who refuses to let you face the darkness alone." Slowly, trembling like a leaf in the wind, Autumn reached out and placed her cold, wet hand in Landon's warm, calloused palm. The moment their fingers touched, something electric passed between them. Not romance, not yet, but recognition. The recognition of two souls who had walked through fire and somehow found each other in the aftermath.
Landon gently helped her climb back over the barrier, his other hand steady on her arm as she found her footing on the safe side of the bridge. The photograph remained clutched against her chest, but her grip on despair had finally loosened. "Why did you stop?" she asked as they walked slowly toward his truck, both of them shivering now that the adrenaline was wearing off. "Most people would have just kept driving." Landon was quiet for a moment, thinking about fate and chance and all the small moments that lead up to big changes. "Because 2 years ago, when I was standing where you just were, an old man walking his dog stopped and talked to me for 3 hours. He probably saved my life that night, and he never even knew it." "What did he say?" "He told me that we're all just walking each other home. That sometimes home is just the next moment, the next breath, the next day when we choose to keep going." They reached his pickup truck, and Landon opened the passenger door for her. The interior was worn but clean and wonderfully warm compared to the storm outside. As Autumn settled into the seat, still clutching her photograph, she looked around at the evidence of Landon's life. A child's car seat in the back, a small pink backpack, a drawing taped to the dashboard that said, "I love you, Daddy," in purple crayon. She drew that last week. It's supposed to be the two of us fishing, though I have to admit it mostly looks like stick figures with very large smiles. Despite everything, Autumn almost smiled. "She sounds wonderful. She is. And she's going to love meeting you." Autumn's eyes widened. "Oh, I don't want to intrude on your life." "You're not intruding," Landon said firmly, pulling away from the bridge. "You're accepting help from someone who understands exactly what you're going through. There's a difference."
As they drove through the quiet Denver streets, Autumn stared out the window at the world she had almost left behind forever. Everything looked different now, not bright or cheerful, but possible in a way it hadn't been an hour ago. "Where are we going?" she asked quietly. "My apartment isn't much, but it's warm and dry. You can take a hot shower, get into some clean clothes, and we can figure out what comes next." "I don't have anywhere to go after tonight," Autumn admitted. "I've been sleeping in doorways and shelters when I can get in." Then you'll stay with us until you do have somewhere to go, Landon said simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. You don't even know me, Autumn protested. I could be dangerous or crazy or... You're not dangerous, Landon interrupted gently. You're hurt, and hurt people helping hurt people is how the healing starts. They pulled into the parking lot of a modest apartment complex, the kind of place where working families made do with what they had and tried to build something better for their children. As they climbed the stairs to the second floor, Autumn felt a strange mixture of terror and hope swirling in her chest. She hadn't been inside a real home in 6 months. She'd forgotten what it felt like to be warm and safe and wanted somewhere. Landon unlocked the door to apartment 2B and gestured for her to go in first. The living room was small but cozy, with mismatched furniture that somehow worked together and children's toys organized in neat baskets along one wall. Claire is asleep, he whispered, pointing down a short hallway, but you'll meet her in the morning. Fair warning, she is very curious and talks approximately 1,000,000 words per minute. She sounds perfect, Autumn said softly, looking around at this space that radiated love and care despite its simplicity. The bathroom's right there, and I'll find you something to wear. Are you hungry? Autumn realized she couldn't remember the last time someone had asked for that question with genuine concern. Yes, actually. Yes. Good. I make a mean grilled cheese sandwich, even at 2 in the morning.
As Autumn stood under the hot spray of Landon's shower 20 minutes later, washing 6 months of street life off her skin, she felt something she hadn't experienced since the accident. Gratitude. Not the desperate, guilty gratitude of someone who thinks they don't deserve help, but the quiet gratitude of someone who recognizes kindness when it appears. The photograph of her family sat safely on the bathroom counter, finally dried and smooth as flat as she could make it. Their faces smiled back at her, and for the first time in 3 years, she didn't feel like she was betraying them by being alive. When she emerged from the bathroom wearing Landon's old college sweatshirt and a pair of his sweatpants rolled up at the ankles, she found him in the kitchen, true to his word, making grilled cheese sandwiches. "Feel better?" he asked, not turning around, but somehow sensing her presence. "I feel human again. I'd forgotten what that was like." They sat at his small kitchen table, eating sandwiches and drinking terrible coffee and talking in whispers so as not to wake Clara. Autumn found herself sharing things she hadn't spoken aloud in months, her memories of Mia's laugh, her mother's terrible singing voice, the dreams she'd had before the accident about becoming a children's book author. "You should write again," Landon said when she mentioned the books she'd planned to create. "I can't. Every time I try to think of a story, all I see is the accident. All I hear is the sound of metal crushing metal." "Then maybe you need to write that story first," Landon suggested gently. "Maybe you need to get it out of your head and onto paper before you can make room for new stories." Autumn considered this, absently tracing the rim of her coffee mug with one finger. "What about you? Do you ever think about dating again? About Clara having a mother figure?" Landon was quiet for a long moment. "Sometimes, but it would have to be someone pretty special. Someone who understood that Clara and I come as a package deal, and that her heart has already been broken once by a mother who walked away."
"She's lucky to have you," Autumn said. "I can tell just from being here for an hour that you've built something beautiful for her." "We've built something beautiful together," Landon corrected. "That's what families do. They build each other up, piece by piece, day by day." As the first light of dawn began to creep through the kitchen window, Autumn realized that she was no longer thinking about endings. For the first time in 3 years, she was thinking about beginnings. "Landon?" she said quietly. "Yeah." "Thank you for stopping, for talking to me, for bringing me here. I know I'm a stranger and you had no reason to—" "You're not a stranger anymore," he interrupted gently. "You're Autumn. You're someone who loved her family so much that losing them nearly destroyed her. You're someone with stories to tell and a heart big enough to heal the world. And you're someone who deserves to be happy again." Autumn felt tears prick her eyes, but for the first time in months, they weren't tears of despair. "I don't know how to start over," she admitted. "You already have," Landon said simply.
You started the moment you took my hand on that bridge. Have you ever experienced a moment that changed the entire trajectory of your life? What happened next in Autumn and Landon's story will show you that sometimes the most unexpected connections become the most important ones. 6 months later, Autumn was standing in the same kitchen, but everything had changed. The apartment that had felt like a temporary refuge had become home. The man who had been a stranger on the bridge had become her closest friend, and the little girl who had been just a name and a drawing had become the light of her life. "Autumn! Autumn!" Clara's voice rang through the apartment as she burst through the front door after school, her backpack flying behind her. "You'll never guess what happened today." "What happened, sweetheart?" Autumn asked, kneeling down to Clara's eye level. It had taken weeks for the 7-year-old to warm up to her, but now Clara chattered away to Autumn as easily as she did to her father. "Mrs. Peterson read the story you wrote to our whole class, and everyone loved it. Tommy Martinez said it was better than any book in our classroom library." Autumn's heart swelled. She'd started writing again, slowly at first, just small stories about brave children and magical adventures. Clara had been her first audience, and her enthusiasm had given Autumn the courage to share her work with others. "And Mrs. Peterson wants to know if you'll come to our class next week and tell us about being a real author." "I'm not a real author yet," Autumn protested gently, but Clara shook her head vigorously. "Yes, you are. You write stories, and people read them, and they make everyone happy. That's what real authors do." Landon appeared in the doorway, still in his work clothes, but smiling at the conversation he'd overheard. "She's not wrong," he said, hanging up his jacket. "The children's book you submitted to that publisher last month. Any word back yet?" Autumn shook her head. "Not yet, but I'm trying not to think about it too much." "Well, I have something that might cheer you up," Landon said mysteriously, pulling an envelope from his back pocket. "This came for you today." Autumn's heart stopped. The return address was from Sunshine Children's Books, the publisher she'd submitted her manuscript to 6 weeks ago. "I can't open it," she said, backing away from the envelope. "What if it's a rejection? What if they hated it?" "What if they loved it?" Clara chimed in, bouncing on her toes. "What if they want to make it into a real book with pictures and everything?" "There's only one way to find out," Landon said gently, holding out the envelope. With trembling hands, Autumn took the letter and carefully opened it. Her eyes scanned the first few lines and her face went completely white. "What does it say?" Claire demanded impatiently. Autumn's voice caught. "They want to publish it. They want to publish Mia's magical adventures." The silence that followed was broken by Clara's shriek of joy and Landon's whoop of celebration. Autumn found herself swept into a group hug that lasted several minutes, tears streaming down her face for all the right reasons. "I can't believe it! My first children's book is going to be dedicated to Mia, and now real children are going to read stories inspired by her." "She would be so proud," Landon said softly, and Autumn nodded, unable to speak for a moment. That night, after Clara was asleep, Autumn and Landon sat on his small balcony, looking out over the city lights. The same city that had once felt like a prison now sparkled with possibility. "I've been thinking," Landon said quietly. "About what?" "About what happens next. For us, I mean." Autumn's heart began to beat faster. Over the past few months, their friendship had deepened into something neither of them had expected. They'd been careful, both of them guarding hearts that had been broken before, but the connection between them was undeniable. "Landon, I know we said we'd take things slow. I know we both have healing to do, but Autumn, what I feel for you, it's not just gratitude for how you've helped with Clara or admiration for how brave you've been. It's love," Autumn finished softly. "I know. I feel it too." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both of them marveling at how love could grow in the space left by loss. "Clara asked me something yesterday," Landon said. "She wanted to know if I thought her mommy sent you to us." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that sometimes the people we lose help guide the people we need into our lives, and that whether that's true or not, I'm grateful every day that you're here." Autumn reached over and took his hand, the same hand that had pulled her back from the brink 6 months ago. "So am I," she said. "I never thought I'd be happy again. I never thought I'd want to wake up in the morning or look forward to tomorrow. But now I can't wait to see what our story becomes." 6 months after that conversation, on a warm spring evening, Landon and Autumn found themselves back on the bridge where they'd first met. But this time, they weren't there in desperation or despair. Landon was on one knee, holding a simple ring, with Clara standing beside them, holding a bouquet of wildflowers and bouncing excitedly. "Autumn Walsh," Landon said, his voice steady and sure, "you saved my life the night I saved yours. You brought stories and laughter back into our home. You showed Clara what it means to have a mother who chooses to stay. Will you marry us?" "Us?" Autumn laughed through her tears. "It was my idea," Clara announced proudly. "I told Daddy he had to ask both of us because we're a team now." "Yes," Autumn said, looking at the man who had become her anchor and the little girl who had become her heart. "Yes, to both of you. To all of us." As Landon slipped the ring onto her finger, Autumn thought about the photograph she still kept on her bedside table, the one of her mother and Mia from that last happy morning. She'd finally been able to look at it without breaking down, and she swore that sometimes she could see approval in their smiling faces. "I have something to tell you both," she said, as they walked hand in hand off the bridge and back toward their car. "What?" Clara asked. "Sunshine Children's Books wants me to write a whole series of books, and they want to know if I'd be interested in doing school visits, sharing my stories with children all over the country." "That's amazing," Landon said, pulling her into a hug. "But it would mean traveling, being away from home sometimes." "Home isn't a place," Clara said wisely, in the way that children sometimes surprise adults with profound truths. "Home is us, and we'll always be here when you come back." 2 years later, Autumn stood in front of a classroom full of third graders, reading from her latest book. The dedication page read, "For Mia and Mom, who taught me how to love. For Landon, who taught me how to heal. And for Clara, who taught me that families are built with choice as much as chance." After the reading, a little girl with pigtails raised her hand. "Miss Autumn, how do you think of such good stories?" Autumn smiled, thinking of a rainy night on a bridge, of calloused hands reaching out in the darkness, of the way love can transform pain into purpose. "Well," she said, "the best stories usually start with the worst moments. But if you're brave enough to keep living, keep loving, keep hoping, sometimes those worst moments become the beginning of your very best chapters." As the children applauded and asked for one more story, just one more, the way children always do, Autumn felt her phone buzz with a text from Landon. "Clara's soccer game is at 4. Can't wait to see our girls score another goal. Love ya. Our girl, our life, our family, built from broken pieces and sealed with choice and love and the radical decision to keep showing up for each other day after day." That evening, as they sat around their dinner table, now in a bigger apartment with room for Clara's art supplies and Autumn's writing desk and all the beautiful chaos of a life built together, Autumn looked at her husband and daughter and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "What are you thinking about?" Landon asked, noticing her expression. "I'm thinking about that night on the bridge, about how close I came to missing all of this." "But you didn't miss it," Clara said simply. "You stayed and Daddy stayed, and now we're all staying together forever. Forever and always." Later that night, after Clara was asleep and the dishes were done, Autumn found herself standing on their small balcony, looking up at the stars. Landon joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Benny for your thoughts," he murmured against her hair. "I was just thinking about your friend from that night, the old man with the dog who talked to you for 3 hours when you needed it most." "What about him?" "I wonder if he ever knew, if he ever realized that stopping to talk to a stranger on a bridge would eventually lead to all of this, our love, our family, the books I write, the children's whose lives those books touch." "Probably not," Landon said thoughtfully. "Most of the time, we don't get to see the full impact of our kindness. We just have to trust that it matters." "It does matter," Autumn said firmly. "Every word you spoke to me that night, every moment you chose to stay instead of driving past, it all mattered. It changed everything." You changed everything too, Landon reminded her, by choosing to trust me, by choosing to live, by choosing us. As they stood there together under the vast night sky, Autumn thought about all the people out there who might be standing on their own bridges tonight, literal or metaphorical, wondering if their story was over.
If you're watching this and you've ever felt like your story was ending, please remember that sometimes the most beautiful chapters begin with the words, "Please don't." Sometimes a stranger's kindness can become a lifeline. Sometimes choosing to stay, choosing to try one more day, choosing to accept help when it's offered, can change everything. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that their story isn't over yet, that healing is possible, that love can grow in the spaces left by loss, that families can be built from choice as much as blood, that sometimes the worst nights lead to the most beautiful mornings. And if you've ever been the stranger who stopped, who offered help, who chose kindness when it would have been easier to keep walking, thank you. You may never know the full impact of your compassion, but please trust that it matters more than you could ever imagine. Subscribe if this story touched your heart. And remember, we're all just walking each other home. Sometimes home is just the next moment, the next breath, the next day when we choose to keep going.
And somewhere in Denver, on a bridge that spans the Colorado River, there's a small plaque now. It was Clara's idea, installed on the 2nd anniversary of the night her parents found each other. It reads, "For everyone who chooses to stay, for everyone who stops to help, for everyone who believes that tomorrow can be different than today, your story matters. You matter." Below that, in smaller letters, "In memory of Mia Walsh, who loved stories and believed in happy endings." Because that's the thing about love. Real love, the kind that saves lives and builds families and changes the world one small act at a time. It doesn't erase the people we've lost or pretend the pain never happened. Instead, it transforms that pain into purpose. It honors the memory of those who are gone by living more fully, loving more deeply, and helping more generously than we ever thought possible. As they walk hand in hand, these three people who found each other in the darkness and chose to build something beautiful together. And if you listen closely as they pass, you might hear them telling stories, new ones, about brave princesses and kind dragons and magical kingdoms where no one has to face the dark alone.